Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We have a really interesting topic, and for our Severance fans out there, yes, this was inspired by Severance. But as folks are coming in, I just want to welcome everyone here. And if you're already joining us and you got your beverage, you got your snackos and everything for a conversation, like we'd love to hear in the comments below what brought you to today's topic of reintegration and how to bring all parts of ourselves to the table. So I have Eunice with me today, and we'll do a little bit of introduction in a second. I'm really excited for this chat with her as well, because we both are big fans of just bringing our whole selves to the table and like, what does that actually mean? And like, sometimes it's harder than what it looks like. And we'll share that with you all today as well. But to get us started, I just want to share two agreements that we usually hold in the space for our chats. The first one is just inviting you all to stay curious, right? So our chats here, they're open explorations, and they're not meant to introduce like one right or wrong way to think about things. So everyone who comes here, we share a perspective that's unique to us. So if there's something that really resonates with you, take with it, run with it in your life, and there's something you don't fully agree with or still processing, you can feel free to share that with us in the comments, or move on to the next nugget that we're going to share with you. And the other thing I wanted to ask everyone today is just to stay open, right? Most of the conversations we hold on our LinkedIn Lives is about the larger journey, right? How we become more of who we are. And that's not something that's going to happen in an hour, in a day, and so forth. So we're hoping that today's conversation will get you one step closer to that as well. All right. Well, without further ado, I want to give Eunice a chance to introduce herself. And yeah, go ahead, take it away.
Thanks, Betty. Hi, everyone. My name is Eunice. I am a somatic life and business coach for daughters of immigrants and moms who are ready to grow their peaceful, profitable business and boldly design a life they actually want. And whether you're reclaiming your time from your 9 to 5 or creating more space to enjoy with your baby, really understanding how we can build generational abundance beyond just basic level survival or scarcity, or honestly, from my personal experience of like sacrificing myself along the way. And as a first gen Korean American and eldest daughter of immigrants, I lived that life. I grew up watching my parents working so hard to survive and provide for us. And that ingrained in me that hard work ethic and knowing that sometimes you got to sacrifice things along the way to success. And one of the things I sacrificed along the way was my body. I just pushed through when there were warning signs and ignored the check engine in the car being like, okay, it's time to maybe pause a little bit or slow down, but I would just push through. And now, as a mom to my almost 1-year-old baby son, Teo, I'm very much interested in creating a new reality for myself, my family, my lineage, the generations that come before me, and also the generations that come after me. And really, I'm so excited to explore this topic today because the question that I've been embodying and curiously exploring is, how do I navigate this motherhood, life, business journey in a relaxed, confident, playful, joyful way where I'm embodying sort of this new reality for my son, even just in my own existence. And that's what I love helping folks do in my coaching practice. I bring in nervous system support, so somatic coaching, as well as business strategy and life coaching all together, bringing in my experience from working at startups for the last 10 years and helping develop and execute growth strategies, as well as the trauma-informed somatic healing and doula work that I did to help people navigate through these like deep life transitions where so much of our identity can be in flux, right? So how do we integrate all of those identities along that journey and have fun along the way? So that's a little bit about me, but Betty, I would love to hear a little intro from you as well.
Yeah, and I love that you introduced like the doula part, the business part, and it's just there's so many like I always find it hard to introduce myself in a bite size, and I think that's been a struggle of mine, my clients for a really long time. So, like, that's what today's conversation is around, folks. It's like, how do we bring all those parts of us and reintegrate? So, most of you do know me because you found me on my LinkedIn. Hi. But for those who are new to me, my name is Betty Chan. I am an authenticity life coach, facilitator, and speaker. And I primarily work with first generation leaders or folks I call code switchers, people who feel like they have to keep one version of themselves and curate how they show up in one space and then completely flip to something else and like switch to another identity that they have or who they are trying to be. So as you just mentioned, that could be from a family context. Like how are you showing up when you're with your core family, with your siblings, as opposed to your parents, your in-laws, or even something I feel like all of us know here on LinkedIn and probably YouTube is just going from work, going to home, like who are we showing up as in even those two spaces? So very excited to explore that with you all. And I'll share more, like similar to Eunice, I have a lot of commas after my name. So you'll all get to know a bit of that. And that's part of why we wanted to have this conversation because Eunice and I were just reconnecting. It's just like two coaches, like how's everything going? How's life going as well as just on top of our work as coaches? And we realized that there were parts of us that kept coming up in conversations, but we didn't really fully fold it into the outward version of us. And we were just like, oh, wonder like why is that about? Like why is that coming about? And like, do we want to shift this? And if we do, how do we go about it? And also, in addition, we were both watching Severance. So, anyone on season two will know that integration is part of it. Don't worry, no spoilers today. We're not going to touch on that. That was
It's
just
gonna
really
be so
funny at
hard.
the it's like no spoilers, and just watching that show and having that be also like a storytelling point of like, yeah, what does that mean when we separate parts of ourselves to that dramatic level, and when we choose to come back and be the whole version of ourselves, what does that look like? All right, so I mean, Eunice, you touched on it a bit already. Like you shared about you being a mom, being an entrepreneur, and somatic coach. And I'm just kind of curious for you, like for like this season, right? It's like reintegration probably happens at different parts in your life, but right now, what are the parts of you that you're trying to fold in together and bring back together?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a lifelong journey of reintegration and also severing these different parts of myself in order to fit into these little parts of society, right? So I immigrated to California from South Korea when I was 7. And
Mm,
so immediately there's a severance of me at home speaking Korean. Um, we
mm,
are a Korean family. And then I show up to school, and all of a sudden I'm trying to be as American, quote unquote, as possible. And I think it's a very common, like, immigrant or daughter of immigrant
yeah.
experience to have your school self, your home self, like you said, or your
Mm,
work self, some people call it the real self, but like your home self. And along my own healing journey, I thought I had integrated all of myself. So I have been really integrating like my Korean American heritage, being an
mm,
eldest daughter of immigrants, being a mother, being a wife, somatic coach, creative. Like I really thought I had been integrating, which is true. But
mm,
most recently, I realized that in an attempt to better understand, even on a deeper level, my zone of genius and what I really bring to the table when supporting my clients and what I'm really here to share my truth, I realized that
mm,
I was ignoring the last 10 plus years of experience I had in corporate, in
mm,
startups, in business, in entrepreneurship as completely separate from my coaching, facilitating, somatic
mhm.
healing part of me, to the point where my husband jo- joked around, especially during the pandemic when we were all working from home in the same
Yeah.
room, like, Eunice, you have two different voices. One, when you're talking business, it's kind of like that, like, boss energy of like, I know my shit, and I'm gonna tell you like this is what we need to do to grow your business. And I'm in
Mm,
these rooms with typically like a lot of men, and I can hold my own, right? The eldest
Mhm.
daughter in me comes out where I'm like, I know we're going to get stuff done. But then, in somatic healing and my doula work,
Yeah.
supporting moms, it's like I'm so gentle and I'm so validating and
Mm.
deep and nurturing, and that softness really came out. And I think in my healing journey of softening my
Mm.
hardness that came with that eldest daughter protective energy, for some reason my brain had associated this like past version of me or my work self,
Mm.
my business self as like, oh no, she's too hard, or she's,
Mm.
she's a lot. Like she is not the soft, nurturing, like that version
Yeah,
of
she
me that
can't
I
hang
had
with
worked
us.
so hard. Like she can't hang with us. She's different.
Yeah.
Like we'll
Yeah.
we'll use her when we need to make some money, like or when we need to, get stuff done during meetings. But I really just like siloed her off as almost
Mm.
like that's just her corporate self. And people talk a lot about um like you said, like wearing your armor. So I thought she was the
Mhm.
armor. So I thought
Mm.
I took off that armor. So I just like put it in the closet. But
Mhm.
then in recent times, I realized like actually she's brilliant. Like the woman in the armor. Like I looked at
Yeah.
my what I've been able to achieve with her inside me,
Mhm.
navigating 10 years of entrepreneurship, having the courage to
Mm.
leave corporate, to start my own business,
Mhm.
doing that multiple times, like getting up on stage, speaking my truth, learning, failing, trying again, and also helping companies grow to the point where the growth strategy is supporting like billions of dollars. And I was like,
Yeah.
that is not just something for me to hide in the closet just because it has that armor quality to
Yeah.
it. How can I invite her back in and basically reintegrate that softer, nurturing, somatic
Mm.
healing facilitator version of me with this like badass, entrepreneur, business strategist who is
Mhm.
very much wanting to come out in this season. And
Yeah.
so when I realized those two can coexist and actually produce like its own special sauce of
Yes,
magic,
that's it.
um,
Mhm.
the less diluted I am, the more potent my message and my truth is, because it's actually just me. Like it is literally just me in its raw form without having to separate myself into two palatable, understandable
Mhm.
verticals. And I
Yeah.
think what really sealed the deal for me was when I remembered that I come from a long lineage of entrepreneurs. So I didn't like fully integrate that either. And my dad is an entrepreneur. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. My great grandmother, who is my ancestral spirit guide,
Wow.
she's been guiding me through my entire journey of ancestral healing,
Mhm.
um my journey to motherhood, through labor, all these
Mhm.
things. She fled the during the Korean War with 6 kids
Oh my
and
goodness.
built a business to survive and thrive, really. She was a single
Mhm.
mom at the time because her husband died early. And she was just early postpartum and running this hardware store,
Wow.
making money, and also providing for the kids. And I was like,
This is in
she,
your
not to
lineage.
reference, yeah,
Yeah.
she's been guiding me, and it's not random that I'm here,
Mm.
right? And it's not random that I am an entrepreneur, and it's something that I love. I love talking about it. I live and breathe it. And
Mm.
the moment I realized like I was meant to reintegrate in this way and that it's in my blood, gave me the confidence to just go for it, like present my
Mm.
most raw, authentic version of myself. And the results, even in the recent weeks and months, have been like, so it's clicking, it's
Yeah.
clicking after each coaching session when I bring all parts of myself in this way, both life and business, somatic and strategic.
Mm.
I leave each call feeling energized and also just like ready to go, which to me energetically is like, okay, it feels really aligned in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you feel that like light up energy. And I imagine some of that, like I actually imagine energy is like, oh, it's present and it's stronger because you're not burning so much energy from having to switch and like take off and put on and take off and put on. Like you get to just like
Yeah.
show up with both sides or the multiple sides, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's not just two. We carry a lot
Sure.
more than even two identities afterwards.
Mhm.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
think if you pull from only one part of you, like, too much, this is how it
Mm-hmm.
feels for me at least. It's like there's only so much I can give on this side, like the
Mm-hmm.
soft, nurturing. It's really deep for me, but it's like after a while, that other part of me is like trying to burst out, like the strategic business. Like she wants to just like come out and join the party too, but because in that more severed version of myself, I'm like, no, 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 like you can't be here right now
Yeah.
because we're trying to be
This is a
this
soft
way.
space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the suppression of that and only drawing from one source, I think, is a little bit more draining to me longer term
Yeah.
than just allowing. To me, it's a sensation of like releasing the valve a little bit and just like
Mm-hmm.
allowing
Yeah.
allowing the different identities to breathe versus like,
Yeah.
no, you can't come right now. You can only come in a certain time and space that I tell you when to come, like that kind of authoritative
Mm-hmm.
vibe. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what comes up for you when it comes to reintegration and the different parts of you that are showing up in your life now.
I resonated with what you said earlier of like it felt like a lifetime, and it probably will
Mm,
continue, right? Like what I said early on, a lot of what I explore in authenticity coaching work is not one and done, right? It's we're building a
mhm,
foundation piece we stand on, and then more change happens at a greater potency and greater intensity as well. But I think in this season, I feel like the folks who have joined me on these talks before, I more recently shared about bringing my creativity back. So for a long
mm,
time, I would tell myself I'm not a creative person. And I didn't realize until very recently that that voice was not my voice. That voice was an old boss's voice who
mm,
said I was not creative, not because I was truly not creative, but because I wasn't creative in the way that he was looking for me to be. But there was a part of my brain back then that just respected authority so much, never questioned anything that came out of someone who was like a boss, a mentor, a parent, a grandparent, and just like blindly believed it was true. But just sitting with that for a long time, it's kind of that suppression feeling you're talking about. The creativity side was still there. It was still trying to come out. It was still coming out. Like I would paint every time I left a job as like just like a personal release and creativity to like step away from the computer, do something that's not word related. And more recent times of, or actually during the pandemic, we would fix furniture, we would flip furniture, which is really
mm,
fun.
mhm.
That's actually one piece, partly in work back
So
there.
cool.
Yeah. And like for my business now, I'm like, yeah, I'm showing up with the things I write, with these conversations that we're having, with
Mhm,
the authenticity journal that I launched as well. But so much of it I didn't allow to come into my lane of coaching and my business because I'm
mhm,
like, this is not a hobby, this is not a creative project over here. Like I can't have that be part of this business. But once I
mhm,
allowed the journal to show up with my authenticity coaching, which is also a lot about honoring your rhythm, like energetically, what gets you going, what stops you, understanding that, knowing how to recharge intentionally. Like it just amplified, like it got louder as opposed to they were competing with each other in that sense as well. So that's been very recent for me. I would say two more comes to mind. One is probably more of a sneak peek. So I think for folks who know me more recently, they know me as Coach Betty. But if you met me 4 years ago and even more than that, you'll probably know me as Betty the Boxer. Like I boxed for 10 years, never competitively. I wish. I was like, that was like a 30-year-old dream of like, can I get in a ring? I did not, but I am good enough to hold myself to be a sparring partner for a lot of those people who go in a ring. And it was just such a big part of what gave me confidence, what kept me somatically regulated as well. And it's still a huge part of how I credit that part of me for teaching me how to hold space for anger, frustration, resentment,
mm,
all those feelings that get in the way sometimes of my clients trying to reach their dreams. Sometimes we have to
mhm,
let things go when we actually want to move forward. So boxing was a really big practice ground philosophically and physically for me. And
Mhm.
I just like I find myself this year wondering like why is that not part of my coaching practice? Right? So
Mhm.
I have logistical concerns and legal concerns around that. But like from a service standpoint of like what I
Yeah.
can support my clients to do
Mhm.
has been it's been huge. And it was actually extremely validating here because I recently reconnected with a old colleague who knew me before I became a coach. She moved to my neighborhood and we actually started going to boxing class together and I would
Oh,
hold the mitts for
nice.
her. I teach her. Yeah. And she was like, you should offer this as your coaching. Like it's highly like it's a great release. It helps people build confidence. And also for me this year, the broader thematic reintegration for me is how do I help people see that gentleness is a strength? Right? Because for
Mhm.
me, like I think the integration is like I didn't allow Boxer Betty to come in for the same reason you didn't allow Strategy Eunice to come in, right? It's like you're
Yeah.
tough, you're a little too rough around the edges. Like, we're in the soft space over here. Like, don't come over here, don't ruin it, kind of thing. But I realized that they can actually be really, really supportive when they're both in the same space because we actually walk through a world where like you have to be a good or a bad person, you have to be black or white
Mhm.
perspective. And I'm just like, we have a lot of trouble as people in the modern day world holding duality. And it's like, you can be gentle and strong. You could be strategic and somatic. And it's like, how do we
Mhm.
teach people that, like, one, both can belong? And also, how do you use it to the benefit of yourself when they are in the same space? Yeah.
Yes, and when you shared that last part of, it's almost like we were shunning, like you were shunning Boxer Betty to the side because it's like, no, 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 we're all about soft and gentle. So, this doesn't belong here. And same thing for me with the strategic, the business, all of that. I was like, no, this doesn't belong here because we're trying to show up in this way. And I
Hmm.
think that's so valid though, because I feel like this is all happening in its own time, and we have different seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think back to, for me, of course I felt that way about strategic Eunice. Like she went through a lot, and that version of her had her armor on because she had to, that's how
Mm-hmm.
she lived and attained her goals and got her paycheck and stood her ground and advocated for herself and her
Yeah.
coworkers. It's like there there really was no room for both to coexist in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And also there was a lot of hurt, along with that experience. So it's like, of course, I focused on the healing process of softening, of
Mm-hmm.
really finding my own voice in the nurturing, somatic healing world, the gentle. Like, of course, that happens. And in order for integration to happen, like integration happens like after multiple steps. When you learn something and when you try it out and then you teach it
Mm-hmm.
to others and you embody it and then you integrate it. Like there's a reason why
Mm-hmm.
integrate comes after, because you kind of need to like go through the experience before you integrate it.
Yeah.
And
Then
so
you can
sometimes,
decide if you want to integrate it.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or you can bring it back in a way that feels aligned. So for example, like for me, there could have been a version, like an older version of me, where I would take what I've learned in growth strategy, business, all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I could revert back to like the hustling, like growth at all
Yes.
costs,
Mm-hmm.
grinding away, survival mode, ignoring my body
Mm-hmm.
signals, because that
Mm-hmm.
is how she was, right? And so of course, I would have been scared to kind of reintegrate her in the first place because I don't want that
Yeah.
reality anymore. And
Yeah.
B, this is why I feel so good and ready now to reintegrate, because I feel so confident in knowing what's aligned and what's not aligned. Like how do I integrate this growth strategy experience in my own way? Like what am I bringing with
Mhm.
me and what am I debunking? What am I saying that's not for me? What's my own way of doing it? And that
Mhm.
level of clarity and alignment and like discerning of like
Mhm.
how you want to reintegrate, I think really speaks to how safely we reintegrate these parts of ourselves that feel like either too much or a little bit like rough around the edges or a little bit
Yeah.
like intimidating. It's like it's all happening in our own season, and it's not one of
Yeah.
those things like I don't want anyone here to feel like, why haven't I reintegrated something
Mhm.
yet, like as
Mhm.
if it's like a bad thing or a wrong thing. It's
Mhm.
like, no, I think it just like comes in waves and seasons, and we're just like continuously reintegrating these different parts as we learn and grow.
Yeah.
And inevitably, like, we're developing the deeply rooted sense of self, the more we're able to invite that level of inner
Mm.
safety as we integrate parts of ourselves that we once thought were a little too much. So
Yeah.
I that just came up for me as you were sharing, because I was like, yeah, it makes so much sense that we're having this conversation now, not 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. There is, again, like there's a right and a wrong way to do this. There's a right and a wrong time to do this. That's often a type of mindset that like gets in the way of authenticity and just like allowing ourselves to unfold and
Mhm.
embrace all the different sides of us. And I think partly, like, I don't know why my brain just went to like closet and clothes, right? It's like when we're little, we're just randomly trying on different outfits, right? It's like I get
Yeah.
to be this person, that person. And when I say little, I mean even through the 20s of professional life. That's still like a giant experimentation period.
Babies.
And now, yeah, we're professional babies. And with the healing, with the learning, with the stumbling, and all of that along the way, then we develop that wisdom, that discernment to be
Mhm.
like, oh, this is what it feels like and what it looks like when I wear this piece. But I don't have to wear the
Mhm.
full piece. I like that
Right.
top, and I'm going to mix it with those pants.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be my new look. But we're like allowed to also reinvent ourselves along the way, too.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that process of it is ongoing. There's no clear starting point, there's no ending point, but a lot of it is just like clicking in and being like, hey, let me ask myself a question today. What do I want to show up as? And like, where am I not allowing myself to show up? And is that the experience I want right now?
Mhm.
And I would gotta say, like, that before I became a coach, I can't say I knew how to do that because
Mm.
all the supposedly safe spaces I had felt like they were filled with advice of like, "Oh, that's not you," or "That's very you, Betty," or like, "Oh, like, when you do that," like, everyone's
Mm.
got an opinion on how you're
Mhm.
showing up or how I was showing up, and it's not always out of malintention. It's just, like, they respond to a certain side of me. Like, some people like
Mhm.
the boxer side, some people like the Brooklyn Betty side, some people like the really gentle leader side, right? So it's just, like, they're picking a side that they want, but I
Yeah.
realized in all those conversations, I was not doing any of the picking myself.
Mm.
So for me, that's what
Mhm.
reintegration is. Like, can I be part of this conversation? You like this part, and this part, and you don't like those part? Cool. I'll take that into consideration. But also for me, like, what do I like? What do I wanna like shelf a little bit, let it marinate, and then like fold back into my life later when I'm ready, when it feels safe to do that also.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sense of agency and choice around
Mhm.
how you want to show up in this moment, and I think that's the gift and the curse of being multi-passionate and just multi
Yeah.
whatever. Um,
Mhm.
People will always project, and people will always just celebrate what they see in us,
Mm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if that's the only direction of expression we take as like reality, like whatever our environment or people tell us we are, it
Mhm.
if that does not match truly with how you actually feel as a whole, it can feel like, that sense of agency is taken away. So I think like that sense of like reclaiming your authentic expression and
Mhm.
reclaiming the reintegration process as just your own, and knowing that giving yourself the permission for it to look different,
Yeah.
day like from one day to
Mhm.
another. And maybe boxer Betty really wants to show up today, and maybe it's like boxer plus gentle wants to come out today. I don't know. So it's like I've been approaching it with a more playful, exploratory lens. I have a 1-year-old,
Yeah.
so I'm learning so much from him. Like, he's just, like, going
Yeah.
around putting into little bowls, and he puts like his fruit in my husband's shoes, and I'm just like always finding stuff, and I'm like, he's always keeping me surprised and on my toes. And
Mm,
myself, how can I, and my clients, like, how can we invite this
yeah.
level, this sense of play and exploratory
Yeah.
experimentation, and even how we
Mhm.
reintegrate and rediscover parts of ourselves that want to come out.
Yes. Yeah. And I like the phrase of like it's an expression, right? So I do think of
Mhm.
it sometimes as art. Like you have a
Yeah.
canvas today, you can show up this way. What's inspiring you? What are the tools you have? What are the limitations you have today? And how do you go about creating that canvas of the day as well or the season?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In terms of like supporting, or like maybe even both ways, right? So, like, one, I know you do support your clients in terms of helping them reintegrate, especially from like a leaving job perspective and like going into motherhood as well. Um, but I also want to come at it from the lens of like, what makes a space supportive for that reintegration
Mm.
process? And I'm kind of curious what your
Mhm.
take is on that.
Yeah. I I think we touched on it a little bit already just now of choice. I think setting the stage. I love that we even started this conversation with some agreements, and I think that's just really helpful in co-creating a space where my clients feel a level of agency and choice through their journey, and knowing that all parts of them are welcome. And I work with a
Mm,
lot of high achieving folks who are used to being really good at what they do. And the thing about
mm.
life pivots and motherhood and 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship journey, especially entrepreneurship, is that it's messy. It's
Yeah.
messy. It requires problems are all there are always problems, and the high achiever perfectionist sides of us could come out and be like trying to solve every problem or trying to get to the end
Mhm.
of where everything is nice and neat and perfect, and I found myself, I'm reintegrated. But that's just not how it works. Like, by
Yeah.
choosing entrepreneurship, by choosing motherhood, all these things, like, it is messy and it is literally, like, always changing.
Mhm.
So, I always be knowing the types of people I attract, I and knowing intimately, like, what it's like to feel that way,
Yeah.
um, beyond inviting a level of, like, choice and knowing that they can stop, go, they control, like, the parameters of how they wanna grow. I think it's
Mhm.
just this, like, lighthearted, playful, experimental energy from the get-go. I'm like, what's the point if you're, like, stressing your way through this entrepreneurship journey when you left
Yeah.
your 9 to 5 to do it in a different way? Like, what's the
Yeah.
point, you know? And, like, what's the point of motherhood if and you're trying to pass down these, like, heirlooms of
Mm.
joy, playfulness, you wanna be present for them, you want them to grow up
Mhm.
maybe without some of the burdens that they felt in their own childhood. What's the point if you're, like, trying to get it perfect and stressing about it so that you're not actually embodying the joy, the playfulness that you wanna pass down, right? So,
Mhm.
I more than anything, more than cerebrally or intellectually understanding, like, how do we create this quote unquote "safe space," like,
Mm.
um yeah, bring a sense of playfulness and just kind of,
Yeah.
like, lower the stakes a little bit, because once we
Yeah.
can get all messy and, like, play, then I feel like the the pressure that we tend to put on ourselves sometimes to get it right or to go faster,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
goes away, and it just allows the level of, like, safety in our body to catch up to where we are, right? Because I think it
Yeah.
takes time and space for our nervous system to ground back into safety when we're
Mhm.
navigating new terrain, or when we're,
Mhm.
expanding and evolving. It can be scary for our nervous system. So just
Mhm.
giving that level of spaciousness and allowing the nervous system to reground through play and curiosity, I have found to be so helpful for especially daughters of immigrants and moms who are just like trying to hold their stuff together so hard, loosening
Yeah.
that grip.
Mhm. Mm-hmm. I like that you didn't go to a like didactic level because I'm sure there's plenty of articles out there. How does one create safe space? And I do think a lot of it is it's presence too, right? It's like it's how
Mhm.
we show up for each other and like as coaches as well. And we could say all day that we hold non-judgmental space, but if our client comes in and can feel our judgments happening, because we are still
Yeah.
humans, right? Then that can actually push them right back into feeling like I have no room to make mistakes. I got to come in and have like all the
Mhm.
words and all the answers as well. So I love that you call it play because I think as adults, we don't play anymore. On like
Mhm.
every room that we're in, like the relationship, is this going to be a dating relationship? Is it going to be like my wife or my husband? Like everything has this like seriousness to it,
Mhm.
that we lose that permission to try, to experiment, to stumble, to pick another path, change our mind and choose again. And like I think that's the adaptability that helps us really enjoy life as we live life as well. So yeah, I never thought of coaching as play, but like back to the point that like you can be both. Coaching is accountability and it can be play at the same time. And that's kind of how I see it also. Yeah. No, I love
Yeah,
that.
no, presence is so the embodiment and the presence are so key. The
Mm-hmm.
body doesn't lie, you know. You can say
Well,
verbally it's a safe space. You can say all the agreements you want, but if you're not consciously embodying it as a coach or a client, it's like,
mm-hmm.
that's all just we're just living in our head, you know. And I think a lot of my work is also helping us kind of move down, like kind of reconnect with
Out of the
the
head.
other yes, getting out of our head because I think
Mm,
that is one of the big severances of I think modern Western society,
mm,
disconnecting mind, body,
mm-hmm.
spirit. There what we're talking about today is not new. Like our ancestors for millennia have talked about there are many, many schools of thought around
Yeah.
integration and mind, body, spirit. It's just that in
Mm-hmm.
our modern Western society, it's like it's so separate, like, like logical, emotional. And
Yeah.
we're just in the process, I think a lot of us understanding that, oh, that's just not it doesn't feel good in our soul when we start
Mm-hmm.
to cut these
Yeah.
different parts of ourselves and only think with our logic, only feel with our feelings. No, like
Mm,
we want all of that. And the
mm-hmm.
more serious we do it, it's just so much harder because we're scared. There's so much
Yeah.
fear. There's so much fear around what could go wrong or are we doing it right? And the stakes
Mhm.
feel so high. And
Yeah.
so I found that play and presence go very, very hand in hand.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And I mean, I guess we're like kind of talking about it already, but like as lovely as reintegration sounds, it doesn't happen in one blip, it doesn't happen in one moment. And like checkbox, we're done. And I think part of that is because there are so many scary moments along the way, or hard
Mhm.
moments along the way of reintegration. Even when we really want it with all our heart and soul, actually doing it sometimes feels like high stakes, right? It feels like we're not going to be accepted, that we're going to get rejected. All the things that, like, very understandably, no one as a human being wants to experience if we can actively avoid it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah,
at all
yeah.
costs, right? And I'm kind of curious, like, if you think about your own experiences with like folding in those different parts of yourself, showing up fully for yourself, or even the work you've done with your clients. Like, what's one of the common hurdles you've seen them come across when they want to reintegrate?
Yeah, I actually so I like to make sometimes analogies from like birth and labor come up because of my work as a doula. Speaking of reintegration, a lot of labor prep too speaks to the unpredictability of labor and unknowability of what's on the other
Mm,
side, how it's
mhm,
going to go. That is what shows up in this work too, of like wanting to know in advance how it's all going to go and knowing that everything is going to work out in this specific way. So
yeah,
oftentimes, like, we're not taking the step forward because we're afraid and we need to know that this
Yeah.
like desire for need for certainty is
Yeah.
a hallmark of our modern society, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even when it comes to business and, you know, how these corporations run, it's like they want to safe proof their revenue. Like they want to make decisions that are going to bring a return. And so, but to me, that's a telltale sign of being in survival mode, because our survival brain is very much
Mm-hmm.
like it can only see what's like in front of us, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always scanning for potential threats. Like, so the survival part of us are always scanning for threats and knowing in advance, like they need to be assured that everything is going to be okay.
Yes.
And that's all coming from the fact of actually they're trying to protect us, right? They're trying to help us feel
Mm-hmm.
safe, trying to predict every move, so that they're having us stay put so that we don't go into harm's way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing with the survival brain is that they'll never stop scanning, because their whole idea is always about hedging for safety and
Fifty.
looking out
Yeah.
for danger. And so if
Mm-hmm.
we live like that, and I think folks with like immigrant parents can really, you know, like it can be too real, where it's like, yeah, of course, like when
Yeah.
you move to a
Active.
different
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
always in that active, like, how can we find safety and security? How can we get that W-2 job, get that paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
get that prestigious school, whatever it is, to like help you survive here and help you
Mm-hmm.
be okay financially, right? And
Yeah.
the thing about that with reintegration is we never know how it's all going to go. The thing about labor
Mm-hmm.
and birth, we never know how it's all going to go. And by being only in our survival brain, we like the sense of creativity, our strategic thinking, our sense of play is not online, right?
Yeah.
So our body's really smart in conserving energy. So when we're in survival mode, it just turns off our thinking brain.
Everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's one of the biggest challenges I see, is like this feeling of like needing to know that all threats are gone. But I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a way, at least for the clients that I work with, I always remind them like the survival part of us always got our back. Like there's no way where that part will never not come out when it needs to. So how
Yeah.
can we allow, like what can we do to help that part of us feel safe enough to allow these
Mm-hmm.
other parts to also join the party? So it's not getting
Yes.
rid of her, it's not shunning her, it's saying thank you, and how can I help you feel safer, so that all of us, the
Yes.
play, the creativity, the strategic thinking, like
They can
intellectual, like
come.
all of those
Mm-hmm.
things can come, because that's what's
Mm-hmm.
going to help us, you know, navigate this path from a sense of trust versus
Mm-hmm.
fear. And I
Yeah.
think that sense of trust is on a cellular nervous system level. And
Mm-hmm.
the way we build our lives and our businesses, if we don't access that cellular level of trust, it's very often that we're operating from a place of fear, or, you know, this
Mm-hmm.
need for safety and security from a survival lens. So that's a little, that's just like a pattern, especially with first and second gen folks who grew
Yeah.
up with like generational trauma. Like it's just so ingrained in us. So of course it
Yeah.
takes, you know, more than that, more than just um more than just like what we're used to seeing modeled for us in order to move from a different place. But I'm curious for you if you've seen that with your work with clients as well, or, you know, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see when working with folks in
Mm-hmm.
reintegration?
Yeah. I mean, the nervous system part of it makes so much sense. Like it's something I think I first heard about in therapy, but didn't
Mhm.
quite think of it almost from like a everyday choice part. Because you're right, like when we're in survival, everything else shuts down, understandably. So if we feel like we're no longer in survival, then it makes sense. The rest of the parts of us can show up and thrive. And I think the hurdle I think I see the most is, or the most, it's almost inevitable that the stage will come up, but also it's the one that's most confusing because we're so busy being survival mind about even integration sometimes. Like, okay, I want to be
Yeah.
my full self, I want to be more authentic, like let me make a plan about how I'm going to do that and all the things, like what side am I going to show, what side am I going to not. um, And that's what I create this analogy for my clients to help anchor them, because when you're at that part, when you decide to change something drastic in your life, whether it's leaving your job, whether it's showing up more authentically, whether it's becoming a parent or so forth, you are actually tearing down the home that you knew, right? You have a plot of
Mm,
land, you had a house, you've outgrown it, and you need to tear it down because you have this dream of a different life, a different way of living that you want to build, and you only have this much plot of land. So you got to tear that down to build up the new home in the way that you want to, that feels good.
mhm,
But the part that's the scariest, and where I feel like our nervous system acts up more and almost can be a threat of sorts to have us go regress back to our old ways, is what I call the demolition stage, right? It's like right when you tear down the house, tore my words, like tore all of it, present, past, future. When you tear down the house, there's nothing in front of you, and that is so scary because you don't have the new house yet, you don't have the old house either, right? So I feel like
mhm,
when it comes to any sort of change, reintegration, changing jobs, changing life stages as well, retirement even, it's like I'm entering something completely unknown, and now I don't have any of the foundation that I used to have. And just
mhm.
teaching them like how do we move through that, and the nervous system work that you
Yeah.
talked about is a really key part of that as well.
Yeah, it's like all the things that help them feel safe and protected, like your home,
Mhm,
like your sense of home, your sense of safety, your sense of like you're gonna wake up and see this house here, and
yeah.
familiarity, all the things like being able to, even if we logically know that it's no longer aligned,
Mhm.
logically our body's like, no, but I still want like my bed and my so it's
Yeah.
like that's why like we need the conversation between the
Mhm.
mind, the body, all of those things because
Yeah.
they have differing opinions and that's good. That's okay. It's not good or
Yeah.
bad. It's just it is what it is. And instead of
Mhm.
like demonizing one part or like suppressing one part, kind of going back
Yeah.
to our entire conversation around like the different parts
Mhm.
of us that are wanting to come out, instead of
Yeah.
saying no, you're bad, you're good, like you don't belong here. It's like, no, okay, like I hear you that it sucks to see your house, the demolition, like it is scary.
Yeah.
And remember, we are building a better house, so it's
Yes.
like both
Mhm.
and can be true. And I think in survival mode, we can't hold multiple truths at once because we're
Yes.
focusing on
Yeah.
living and,
Yeah.
moving out of harm's way. And so I love the house metaphor and how like literal and visual it is
Mhm.
because it can feel like that. The reintegration process can feel, as many Severance watchers know, it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't all happen in a nice, sweet, clean cut, perfect
No.
way without giving out spoilers.
Yeah.
So
It does not look like that, no, but
yeah.
it doesn't have to look like the way the TV show presents it either. Because like, when
Yeah,
you
honestly, it's
bulldoze
kind of
it,
scary.
yeah, it is a
With the
little on the
brain, it's
gross.
just a yeah. I
There
don't
are
know if I
less
would ever
painful
sever
ways.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that is a really helpful, like, analogy I give to people, because speaking of, like, the brain does need to see something, and sometimes it's a visualization to help you know, like, "I'm facing the right direction, I'm still going the right way, I just need to like be here in this moment a little longer." And it's scary and
Yeah.
it's okay. And like have the support systems that you need to feel safe. Cause like everyone needs a helping hand in that moment. Like you should not
Mhm.
need to face those moments alone. So like gift that to yourself in that process too. But also know that like when you want change, there will be these moments of like, you get to choose. You get to clear out the closet.
Mhm.
You get to demo the house. You get to then redesign the life that you actually want going forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Eunice, we're almost at time. I feel like you and I can go on and on around reintegration
Yes.
as well. So, I guess for a closing question, I like to sometimes give people a starting space. So, like,
Mm.
what's something small and accessible that you would suggest for folks who are like, hey, there's parts of me that I know I'm leaving on the table and I want to reintegrate, but like, what's one way I can start?
Yeah. I think it's just everything that I've been saying this whole time of play and curiosity. So
Mm.
just asking yourself what part wants to come forth. And honestly, not viewing it as like a quiz where it's like wrong, that was the wrong part that wants to come forward. There is no right or wrong answer to
Yeah.
this, it's literally like, what do you notice? What do you notice
Mm.
wants to come forth? And it doesn't have to be this clean answer of like, okay, entrepreneurship or motherhood. It
Mm.
can literally just be like, I don't know, it's just like this feeling, and like, or
Yes.
just this color
Mhm.
comes out for me, or this memory, or like, I miss playing soccer, or I miss
Mhm.
like wearing eyeliner in this way. It can be so little and big and
Yeah.
playful and serious, but if you have that feeling of something wants to come forth, I
Mm.
invite you to notice what that is and drop all expectations for knowing clarity or an answer, whatever way of
Mhm.
expressing that somatically, like that's natural to you. So whether it's just like talking to someone about it, like if you're,
Mhm.
more of a verbal processor, right? Or maybe you just like want to clear your head and go for a walk and just kind of like tune
Mhm.
into, yeah, what do I notice that wants to come forth in my body today? Or maybe it's your favorite like little workout thing
Mm.
or being in nature. There's just no like right way, but I noticed that sometimes when we're at our desk, like with our pen and paper or notes app, trying to like figure out like what is that thing that we're trying to integrate, like it can be
Mhm.
hard to access the different parts of us beyond our,
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking brain. So whenever I feel like, I'm not sure, like I just switch
Mm.
it up, or, like I either go for a
Mhm.
walk or I'm very, like, sensory oriented, so even, like,
Mhm.
my lavender essential oil, or I, like, play my drums a little bit, mix things
Mhm.
up because by moving things around and allowing the different sensations to, um, allow my body to respond in ways maybe that are not verbal yet or not a correct
Mhm.
or, a clear cut answer, I always like to invite a sense of like curiosity and experimentation with what that clue even is, like the clue to the next step. And it's almost like
Yeah.
a game of sorts of
Yes.
like, what's a little like breadcrumb that wants to fall in my path today? And I don't need to know 10 steps ahead. Just like, how can
Mm.
I just
Mhm.
be thankful for this breadcrumb and have fun and call it a day, and know that it's also not linear. So one day you might feel a
Yeah.
breadcrumb, and the next day you might see a mile ahead. So um,
Mhm.
that's my invitation. Like, what's your little breadcrumb
Mhm.
that you want to invite? And doing so while moving your body, like switching things around
Mhm.
sensorially in order to encourage ourselves to move from just mind to mind, body, spirit when
Yeah. Mm.
exploring these different parts of us.
Mhm. Yeah, I
What
like
about
that. It's
you?
almost like knocking around the closet, right? Just literally move things
Just
around, shuffle
having
things around,
fun, yeah.
and then be able to see what comes out. I love that. I love the clue analogy. I do almost want to. I love a good mystery. So, like in addition to Severance,
Mm,
I watch a lot of like mystery TV shows, and it is like
okay.
follow the clue, right? Like let yourself notice what's around as well. And for me, I know when I first started reintegrating, I think the question that stuck with me is like, I don't even know what's here. Like, it feels ironic, but like, I felt like I didn't know myself, even though I'm supposed to be the person to know myself the best.
Mhm.
So, and being someone who is a verbal processor and understand that that's a huge part of how I process things now, it really helps to have trusted spaces, either my coach, my therapist, family members, to be able to like try on these different stories as
Yeah.
well. Like, hey, this week this really lit me up. I have no idea how it comes through. And just like talk it out. Just let yourself ramble. And like, especially if you have a good listener in your life who can then connect the dots of like, you said this and then that. Like, how do they
Yes.
connect? Like, be curious together. So I would like enlist a good listener in your life
Mm,
as you try to pay attention to these clues yourself too, because you don't have to solve this mystery all by yourself, even though this mystery is
yeah.
sometimes us and who we are. Because partly is because your clues might end up helping someone else too. That's a really cool thing about authenticity work and just like reintegration is like we're all in the process of finding ourselves. So one way in you doing it will inspire someone else as well. And we won't ever be fully in control of that, but just like gifting each other the ability to like observe that along the way.
Yeah. And one last thing you reminded me is our nervous system craves connection.
Mhm.
We're never meant to do this alone. And of course, it's hard to see our entire selves from within. It's like, imagine if you don't have a mirror, how do you know what you look like? We don't. And
Yes.
so, like, it's not something that is shameful or like
Mhm.
we're not doing something wrong because we can't see ourselves. Like,
Mhm.
we are meant to be reflecting these different
Yes.
parts of our gems with each other. And
Mhm.
even my own reintegration journey, with the somatic coaching, the business, motherhood, that all came from, yes, like tuning into my inner knowing and also like so many conversations, like our
Yes.
conversation with my coaches, like my
Mhm.
husband, trying it out, writing it out, sending it out, getting responses. Like the
Mhm.
responses to me have been so nourishing and enlightening
Mhm.
because by putting something out, you're inviting like that um conversation, like
Yeah.
energetically or verbal.
Yeah.
And there's something about how your body responds to their response that also tells you, oh, yeah, this
Mhm.
breadcrumb, this clue feels good to me. Or like, actually, like, nah. So we don't know until like we have something to respond to sometimes too.
Yes.
So I absolutely, think coaching, therapy, being in presence with loving, present individuals in our lives who are here for our best interests, like
Mhm.
absolutely are so essential in our own journey of reintegration. We're literally never meant to reintegrate by ourselves.
Yourselves. Yes. It is dangerous.
It is
The bigger
as
experience
we
is
know in
dangerous.
season 2, it can be not the safest option.
All
That's
right, so
all
I
we'll
think I'm
say.
proud of us for making it to the end of like not giving
I
spoilers.
know.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me today and like just having this open, expansive conversation of like, what does it look like sometimes? Because I think people want to be authentic, and then the actual steps to it is not anything society has taught or documented or written down. A lot of it is we have to find the environments that will bring that out in us and help us feel safe in that process of doing it. But it is totally worthwhile of doing that for
Mhm.
ourselves. So, Eunice, if folks wanted to get in touch with you and like learn more about your reintegration process and just what you support your clients in, what's the best way
Yeah.
for them to reach you?
If you'd like to get to know my reintegration process and hang out, find me at euniceks.com. It's my website. And my email list, my newsletters where I share my no filter, honest personal stories, my reintegration process as it
Mm,
happens. So I'm really trying to embody like embracing the messiness of my journey as well, and also
mm,
inviting the fun, playful messiness of this journey in others as well. So join me in my newsletter and Instagram for behind the scenes stuff. And I love sharing about my son Teo there as well. But yeah,
so
Instagram
cute.
and newsletter are great ways for you to get in touch. And
Mm,
I love, like coffee chats and connecting, and
mhm.
even our like the clarity calls that I have with folks who are interested in coaching. Like, I just love connecting one-on-one and having these types of vulnerable
Yeah.
conversations and honest
Mhm.
conversations. So hit me up. Would love to connect with you. And yeah, thank you, Betty, so much for having me here.
Yes, I'm excited. And for those of you who want to get in touch with me, reach me at heybettychan.com. That website will probably have access to all the other things, a newsletter, Instagram, and more of these talks as well on YouTube as well as LinkedIn. So we look forward to seeing you in the next one. If there's something that particularly resonate with y'all, like let us know in the comments. But other than that, happy reintegration, everyone. All right.
Bye.
Talk to
Happy
you soon. Bye.
reintegration.